Well, welcome aboard once again to X-Plane 11 and the Outback EV-55. Today we're flying from Gillespie Field KSEE to Imperial Airport KIPL. And we're getting the 155 ready here. Get our passengers on board. Let's look at this checklist. Okay, we got the park and brake on. Okay, get a little battery power going here. And we'll start getting her set up. Let's see, park and brake's good, okay. And it's a nice clear sunny day to be doing some flying, so should be a relatively easy flight. Weather's fine. And it's only going to be about an hour long. So we'll get our prop RPMs up a little bit, not too far. Get the main battery on and secondaries. Here we go. We got our avionics powered up. Okay, electric system looks good. Fuel system looks good. Alright, let's get the yoke out of the way so we can see our light switches. Get our beacon on. Okay. Okay, so that's all looking good. I'm going to start setting up our navigation stuff here shortly. Get the flight plan in. See, that's my old flight that brought us here. So we need to get rid of that one because we're not in Palm Springs anymore. So delete that. And that's where we are right now. And I always get these buttons mixed up. Okay. Oh, pshaw. Okay, the outer button moves that cursor. And the inner changes to designate. Okay. So, we need K. S. E. Not F. E. Gillespie Field. Alright. So, accept that. Now we've got two of them. So, we can delete one. Very good. Now, K. Alright. I. And then PL. Imperial County. All right. So accept that. All right. So that's looking pretty good. Just over 70 miles. All right. So let's get this in. Okay, that one's set up. And I normally, what I'll end up doing is I'll do this same thing with the bottom one on COM 2. COM 1 I'll set up with the map visible so that it'll show basically what we call flying the purple for the active legs. Alright. So, and I did it again. Alright, now let's no dummy. There we go. Now here we go again with KIPL. It's going to take almost longer setting this nav up than it is to actually make the flight. But that's all part of it. Alright, let's see. Alright. There we go. Yeah, let's see here. And we're doing a non-ATC. We're just going to set that at 1200. Standby right now. Autopilot, we're going to set our vertical speed and so on. Get it ready, so all we got to do is once we're in the air, press the autopilot button and let it take over. Yeah, vertical speed we're going to set, well, right now that's set at 500 minus. Trying to do too many things at once. Going to have to change that. But let's see here. Load our passengers. This is a SimBuddy virtual airline flight. So we'll load our passengers, all 14 of them.
Welcome aboard.
You're welcome, and we'll go ahead and seatbelt them in, and we'll get some music started. Keep them happy. Okay, we can move that out of the way. And we'll continue on getting the aircraft ready for flight. Okay, let's see here. start up engine number 1. Introduce some fuel. And our right side engine number 1 appears to be starting up nicely. Alright, so number 1 is stabilized, so we can go ahead and start engine number 2. Okay. And that switch is a little bit touchy sometimes, trying to get it to go to the opposite side so we can start it here. Let's try this again. Everything's looking okay. Yeah, we're fine there. And I think it did it again. It's trying to restart the engine number 1. Alright, let's go down here. Everything's okay. There we go. Get it to flip to the left. And engine number 2 started up. Alright. Sometimes it just wants to be difficult. And get some lights on. Taxi, landing lights. Seatbelt sign, no smoking. Okay, wheel steering is anti-skid. Okay. Well, let's start moving to the end of the runway. And this little Outback EV-55 has got some nice characteristics on the ground for taxi and so on. Very easy to handle. Just all around pretty neat little airplane, both in the air and on the ground. You can see there our nose wheel steering. And we're going to go all the way down there. So, got a bit of a trek here. No aircraft coming, so we'll cross runway 35. And our little turboprop. Get our flaps into takeoff configuration here. And get ready to make a left turn here onto the runway. And this is only my second flight in this airplane, so it's still part of my learning curve. She hasn't showed me all her secrets yet, her temperaments and her requirements to keep her happy. So we learn new and better things every time. Okay. Engine fuel to full rich. Got full power on the RPM for props. And brakes released. Start moving her forward. Airspeed is alive. Ooh, she's getting a bit squirrely here. Crosswind. Let's pick up that wing. Alright, rotate. Okay, we're off the ground. Gear coming up. Positive rate. Ooh, work on that trim. Flap coming up. She's a bit squirrely today. Alright, let's get her under control, get some altitude. Get it trimmed up before we turn the autopilot on. Not one of my best takeoffs, but we're all safe. And I think she has come, and I have come to an understanding. And now that I've got her under control, my fine co-pilot has just brought me a hot cup of coffee, and I am ready to fly. So shortly here, I'll have to turn on this autopilot so I can sit back and enjoy my cup of joe. As we take a quick look outside and check the orthos. I do add so much more to the experience of the flying. Yeah, that's good coffee. Alright, so we can turn off the taxi lights. Ease back on our power. Get into a nice cruising speed and yep. Okay. And as we saw earlier, I misset up the vertical speed indicator, so I've got to change that so we're not in the negative and get back to a positive. Otherwise, that would be truly a self-correcting error. But we'll take a closer look at the pretty hills. Oh, wasn't that nice? Let's go ahead and get this fixed and get set up. Because we are going to get some altitude, so we just got over the mountain there and have started our descent. Wasn't a lot to see after you head towards the hills. Started our descent into Imperial. just over 500 feet a minute. We're going to increase that to about 800 feet a minute. And I think we're still going to be a little bit high when we do get to the airfield, but that's not a problem. We'll just make some circles and lose the altitude we need to come in for a landing. Yep, good old desert. You can see the windmills over there in the distance where they generate power for the local communities. That's just a small fraction of what's actually out there. And I think we've got about 19 miles to go, something like that. Nice, easy, slow descent. Yeah, airspeed's about 110 knots. 800 to 1,000 feet a minute. Descent, so it's all looking good. Excuse me. Actually looks very much like the normal typical haze for this part of the country. Okay, that's an airfield out there. That is not the one we're landing at. The one we want is just beyond it. So everything's looking good. You said it's been other than the very beginning there, what you saw, it's been a very uneventful flight. The plane has done exactly what it's supposed to, much more so than the pilot. Yeah, once we get landed though, bird's gonna need a little maintenance. I didn't realize on takeoff, two little things I didn't realize. One, I had, when I was setting things up with navigation and so on, I had actually turned the autopilot on and did not turn it off. So when I took off, the autopilot was already engaged, and that's part of the reason the plane wanted to go in one direction that I wasn't ready to go. So that's one issue. Again, we live and learn. The second issue is that I had the parking brakes about half on. They weren't locked, but they were partially on, and that's why it took a little longer to get to takeoff speed. And so, needless to say, they got probably a little bit worn and hot. So, these things happen when you're flying a new airplane. But I must say, up to this point, the Tesla little airplane's been very forgiving for my stupidity. And it is appreciated. Like I said, that's one airfield there that we are not landing at. The field we want is right there. But the runway we want is that long one. So could land on that little short one, but I'm not, if I'm sure I get her stopped in time. Like I said, these are turboprops. They do have reversers, but I'm really not ready to push my luck too much. So get down here. I'll make a right-hand turn. We'll go down further downwind, and then come into a left base and turn left onto final. Let's hope we don't screw it up. Got the airfield in sight there, so we're going to go ahead and get here on a downwind leg. Go out a little ways here, and then we'll turn it on to a base. Good old Imperial County, farmland everywhere. Proof that if you can bring water, you can turn a desert into green, exceptional farmland. Alright, so we're going to make a nice easy turn over here onto our base leg. Because this area is so flat, it's a little bit hard sometimes to pick out the airfield from the roadways, unless you're real familiar with flying into the area. I'm not. Although in the real world, years ago, I actually did some parachute jumping out here. Yes, I'm that kind of person. And I know those of you out there that know me are sitting there right now just shaking your heads going, yep, he's an idiot. He's crazy as hell. That's just me. Well, my passengers didn't like that turn. Oh well. I got a couple of them scared and a few of them worried. They'll survive. As we swing around here, there's the airfield. Okay, won't be long here. We'll be turning on to final. The one saving grace I have for this airplane, it's got extremely strong landing gear. Because the last time I flew this, I truly tested it. So we've got landing gear coming down. And we've got 3 green and locked. Very good. Flaps down to the first position. Slow the airplane down, slowing down nicely. And we'll turn on to final here. Give a little power to ease our descent. Up and touchdown. Yeah, we'll clean up the flaps and engage my nose steering and pull off the runway. And as you can tell, at this point I hadn't downloaded the airfield from the org store, so it's just pretty much a bare area. We're going to pull up here and just park. Kick the passengers out and be pretty much done with them. Okay, so let's stop, engage the parking brake. And shut down the motors. Get that done and unload our passengers. Turn off the music, unbuckle the seatbelts, and say goodbye. Ended up 4 scared and 4 worried. Sorry about that. Anyway, so we got the passengers out. So, let's take a look at that landing. This is on our base leg. You can see the flaps are in the first stage. We'll be kicking them down to the full here in just a minute. There they go. Here we come. Over the threshold. And much better than my first flight in this airplane. Still about 200 feet a minute sink rate on that landing, so we got to work on that still, but we got her down safe. And clean up the airplane and pull over to the parking ramp. I'm really going to have to get some buildings and stuff on this airfield though. Big old parking area. Alrighty, so and we just shut her down. And another flight complete. And the aircraft is much better at doing its job than the pilot is, I promise you that. But we're safe. So, thanks for watching, and until next time, as always, safe flying.